Once upon a time, in a valley where wildflowers painted the hillsides purple and gold, there lived a miller named Thomas, who ground grain into flour with hands as weathered as old oak bark. He had 3 sons and very little else. Just a creaking windmill that sang in the wind, a gray donkey with patient eyes, and a cat. But what a cat! This cat had fur the color of autumn chestnuts, eyes like emeralds catching sunlight, and whiskers that twitched with thoughts no ordinary cat should think. The miller's youngest son, a gentle dreamer named Luca, often caught the cat staring at the clouds as if reading stories written in their shapes. When winter's frost came early one year, the old miller gathered his 3 sons around his bed. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. "My beloved boys," Thomas whispered, his voice thin as parchment, "I have little to leave you, but what I have, I give with all my heart." He smiled at his eldest son, Marco, tall and strong with shoulders built for work. "To you, I leave the mill. May it grind prosperity for your family." Marco nodded solemnly, already calculating profits in his mind. "To you, Pietro," the miller continued, looking at his middle son, whose quick mind could count faster than most men could think, "I leave the donkey. May she carry you toward your fortune." Pietro grinned, thinking of the trades he could make at market. Then the old man's gaze fell upon Luca, the youngest, who had his mother's kind eyes and an unfortunate habit of getting lost in daydreams. "And to you, my gentle boy, I leave our cat." Luca's brothers exchanged glances that said everything. Poor Luca, always the unlucky one. 3 days after they buried their father beneath the willow tree, Luca sat by the stream, watching the water rush over smooth stones. The cat sat beside him, tail curled neatly around his paws, waiting. "Well, cat," Luca sighed, his throat tight with unshed tears, "at least we have each other, though I fear that won't fill our bellies for long. Marco has the mill, Pietro has the donkey, and I—" He paused, looking at his feline companion. "I have you. I don't suppose you know how to spin straw into gold?" The cat's whiskers twitched. Then, to Luca's astonishment, the cat spoke. "I cannot spin straw, master," the cat said in a voice smooth as honey and sharp as a blade. "But I can spin tales, weave plans, and craft destinies, if you'll trust me." Luca's mouth fell open. A bird sang somewhere in the willow branches. The stream continued its endless song. Finally, he managed, You can talk?" "I've always been able to talk," the cat replied, licking one paw with dignity. "You've simply never been desperate enough to truly listen." The cat fixed him with those emerald eyes. "Now, here's what I require. A pair of boots, good leather ones, and a sack. Can you manage that?" Still stunned, Luca nodded. With the last few coins in his pocket, he visited the village cobbler and bought small boots of supple brown leather and a sturdy cloth sack. When he returned, the cat pulled on the boots with evident satisfaction, flexing his paws and admiring how they fit. "Excellent," the cat purred. "Now, master, you must trust me completely. Can you do that?" Luca looked into those knowing eyes and thought of his father's last gift. Perhaps there was magic in this world after all, woven into fur and whiskers and emerald eyes. "Yes," he said, "I trust you." The cat, now properly called Puss, set off toward the forest with the sack over his shoulder. His boots made satisfying clicking sounds on the cobblestones. Click, 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 like a gentleman on important business. In the forest, Puss filled his sack with fresh clover and tender lettuce leaves, then lay down beside it, still as stone, hardly breathing. Before long, a plump rabbit, drawn by the sweet smell, hopped close to investigate. Puss waited. Waited. Snap. The sack closed around the rabbit quick as lightning. Pleased with his catch, Puss marched straight to the palace. The guards tried to stop him, a cat in boots, but Puss spoke with such confidence and grace that they found themselves opening the golden doors. The throne room glittered with 1,000 candles. King Ferdinand sat upon his throne, a kind man with a crown that seemed too heavy for his graying head. His daughter, Princess Elena, sat beside him, her eyes the color of summer storms, intelligent and searching. Puss swept into a bow so elegant that several courtiers gasped. "Your Majesty," Puss announced, "I bring you a gift from my noble master, the Marquis of Caraway, a rabbit caught on his vast estates." The king's eyebrows rose. "The Marquis of Caraway? I don't believe I know him." "He is modest, sire," Puss said smoothly, "and prefers the quiet of his lands to the bustle of court. But he holds your majesty in the highest regard." The princess leaned forward slightly, curiosity flickering across her face like candlelight. "Please thank your master for his generosity," the king said, accepting the gift. Day after day, Puss returned with presents, pheasants, partridges, hares, always in the name of the Marquis of Caraway. And day after day he lingered in the palace, listening to gossip, learning secrets, discovering that the princess loved poetry and stargazing, that she felt trapped by the expectations of royalty, and that the king wished desperately for her to find someone worthy of her sharp mind and gentle heart. One morning, while enjoying a saucer of cream in the palace kitchen, Puss overheard 2 guards talking. "The king takes the princess on a carriage ride this afternoon," one said, "along the river road to enjoy the spring blossoms." Puss's eyes glinted. His plan crystallized like frost forming on a window. He raced back to the cottage where Luca was trying to mend his only shirt. "Master, trust me now more than ever. Go to the river, the bend where the willow grows, and bathe there at noon. Remove all your clothes and wait for my signal." "But Puss, trust me." Luca did as he was told, though his heart hammered with confusion and fear. He slipped into the cool water just as the king's carriage appeared on the river road, decorated with spring flowers, drawn by 4 white horses. "Help!" Puss yowled, running toward the carriage. "Help! The Marquis of Caraway is drowning. Thieves have stolen his clothes while he bathed. Help!" The king, recognizing his gift-giving friend, immediately ordered his guards to rescue the young man. They pulled Luca from the water, not drowning, merely confused and very, very wet. "Your clothes were stolen?" the king asked, concerned. Before Luca could answer, Puss interjected. "Terrible bandits, sire. They took everything, even his fine velvet coat." The king, generous by nature, insisted on providing new clothes from his own wardrobe. When Luca emerged dressed in a sapphire doublet with silver buttons, silk breeches, and a cloak the color of midnight, he looked every inch a nobleman. His gentle features, freed from the shadows of poverty, showed noble bones and kind eyes. Princess Elena, watching from the carriage, felt her heart do something unexpected. Here was someone who looked uncomfortable in finery, who seemed more interested in thanking the guards than impressing her. Someone real. "Marquis," the king said warmly, "you must join us on our ride, I insist." As the Puss ran ahead, his boots carrying him swiftly over the hills, he came upon farmers harvesting golden wheat. "Good people," Puss announced with great authority. "The king's carriage approaches. When he asks whose fields these are, you must answer, 'They belong to the Marquis of Caraway.' If you don't," Puss's eyes gleamed dangerously. "Well, I know ways to make mice appear in your grain stores by the thousands." Frightened by this strange talking cat in boots, the farmers agreed. when the king's carriage passed and he called out, "Whose magnificent wheat fields are these?" The farmers answered as instructed, "They belong to the Marquis of Caraway, your majesty." The king beamed. "My dear Marquis, your lands are extensive." Luca, bewildered but trusting, simply smiled weakly. Puss repeated this performance with shepherds and their flocks, vintners and their grapes, and orchardists and their apple trees. Each time, the supposed wealth of the Marquis of Caraway grew more impressive. But all these lands truly belonged to a powerful ogre named Malgrim, who lived in a fortress at the valley's end. Malgrim was not evil by nature, merely lonely and afraid that his terrible appearance and magical powers would forever isolate him from the warm world of friendship and love. So he had gathered wealth instead, building walls of gold around his wounded heart. Puss arrived at the fortress gates and knocked boldly. A servant, a trembling mouse enchanted into human form, opened the door. "The master doesn't see visitors," he squeaked. "Tell him," Puss said with perfect confidence, "that I've come to witness his legendary powers. Tell him I'm a scholar of magic and transformation." Curiosity, that old seducer, won out. Malgrim agreed to see this peculiar visitor. The ogre was enormous, with skin like gray stone and eyes like amber pools. He sat on a throne of twisted iron, trying to look fearsome, though Puss detected sadness in those ancient eyes. "You wish to see my powers, little cat?" Malgrim's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Indeed, great lord. They say you can transform into any creature, a lion, a dragon, an elephant. Surely such tales are exaggerated." Pride flickered across the ogre's face. "Exaggerated? Watch." In a shimmer of magic that tasted of copper and smoke, Malgrim became a massive lion with a mane like flames. The roar shook the rafters. Puss's fur stood on end, but he didn't run. "Magnificent," Puss breathed when the ogre returned to his original form. "Truly magnificent. But..." He paused thoughtfully. "I suppose such transformations work only for large creatures? You couldn't possibly become something small, a mouse, for instance?" Malgrim's eyes narrowed. "Nothing is beyond my power." Of course," Puss said smoothly. "I merely thought the magic might not work in reverse, to compress all your power into something tiny." "Observe," Malgrim declared. In an instant, where the mighty ogre had sat, there scampered a small gray mouse. Puss pounced, but, and here's where Puss's true cleverness showed, he didn't devour the mouse. Instead, he pinned it gently with one paw. "Now, Malgrim," Puss said quietly, "we must talk." The mouse squeaked indignantly. With a shimmer, Malgrim returned to his true form, now sitting on the floor, Puss perched on his knee. "You could have eaten me," the ogre said slowly. "Yes," Puss agreed, "but I've learned something important. The greatest magic isn't in transformation or power, it's in seeing what others overlook." He looked up at the ogre with wisdom in his emerald eyes. "You're not a monster, Malgrim. You're lonely. You've built walls of gold when what you needed was a friend." Malgrim's amber eyes glistened. "No one has ever... I'm an ogre. I frighten people. People. My master frightened no one," Puss said. "Yet he had nothing. You frighten everyone yet have everything. Perhaps you both need what the other possesses." At that moment, the king's carriage arrived at the fortress gates. What happened next surprised everyone. Puss introduced the king, the princess, and Luca to Malgrim, not as the Marquis of Caraway's servant, but as the true owner of the lands. And here's what Puss proposed. "Your Majesty, this is Lord Malgrim, keeper of these estates, and this," he gestured to Luca, "is my dear friend Luca, son of a miller, who possesses no lands but has the kindest heart in the kingdom." Lord Malgrim has discovered that wealth without friendship is hollow. Perhaps you might know of some way these two good souls could help each other? The princess spoke for the first time, her voice clear as bells. Perhaps Luca could manage these estates for Lord Malgrim. My father's court has many nobles who are lonely. Lord Malgrim might find friendship there if people could see past their fear to his gentle nature. She looked at Luca with those storm-colored eyes, and he looked back, and in that moment, something true and real sparked between them. Not false nobility, but genuine recognition of kindred spirits. The king, wise in his way, saw the solution immediately. Lord Malgrim, would you consider becoming an advisor to my court? Your knowledge of magic and the wild lands would be invaluable. And Luca, if you would manage these estates and share their bounty with the kingdom. Malgrim stood slowly, hope dawning on his craggy features. You would accept me at court? Truly? My daughter has spoken, the king said, and she has never been wrong about a person's heart. And so the truth came out, not a deception, but a transformation of a different kind. Luca became the steward of the Valley estates, managing them with kindness and wisdom. Malgrim joined the king's court, where his knowledge of magic helped solve many problems, and where he found, for the first time, genuine friendship. As for Luca and Princess Elena, their friendship deepened into love, not because of wealth or titles, but because they shared a love of poetry, stargazing, and seeing the good in others. On their wedding day, as spring blossoms fell like snow, Puss sat in a place of honor, his boots polished to perfection. The princess had a question she'd been saving. Puss, she asked, why did you do all this? You could have simply eaten Malgrim, taken the lands for Luca, and everyone would have believed your story. Puss's emerald eyes glowed with inner light. Because, dear princess, I learned something from my late master, the old miller. He was poor in gold, but rich in love. He taught me that true cleverness isn't about tricking others. It's about seeing possibilities where others see only problems. Malgrim wasn't a problem to solve by violence. He was a person who needed connection. Luca wasn't poor, he was generous. And you? Puss bowed his head. Were not a prize to be won through deception, but a heart that deserved honesty. The princess smiled and scratched behind Puss's ears. You're a very wise cat. I'm a cat in very good boots, Puss corrected, but his purr gave away his pleasure. Years passed. The valley prospered under Luca's gentle stewardship. Malgrim became the kingdom's most beloved advisor, teaching young magicians and telling stories that made children laugh instead of scream. Elena and Luca ruled with wisdom and kindness when the old king passed peacefully in his sleep. And Puss, he spent his days as he pleased, sometimes hunting mice in the castle. For sport, never cruelty. Sometimes teaching the royal children about cleverness and kindness, and sometimes simply napping in the sun, streaming through the palace windows, his magical boots placed neatly beside him. For Puss had learned the greatest secret of all. True magic isn't in boots or transformations or clever tricks. True magic lives in seeing the potential in others, in choosing connection over deception, and in knowing that the greatest treasures aren't gold or power, they're friendship, love, and the courage to be kind in a world that often mistakes cleverness for cruelty. And if you ever find yourself in that valley where wildflowers paint the hillsides purple and gold, you might glimpse a cat in boots, walking with purpose and grace, reminding us all that sometimes the smallest among us carry the wisest hearts. The end.